Hello, everybody. It's your boy Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming here today on the release of Persona 5 Royal for other platforms like the Xbox, like PC, like the Nintendo Switch. I want to make a video in honor of one of my favorite games of all time going to other platforms. Let's talk about why Persona 5 Royal is so much fun. No spoilers in this video, so don't you worry. The only gameplay, the only B-roll will be near the start of the game at the first dungeon, so don't you worry. But let's start with the gameplay, because honestly, this is what I want to focus on for this video, because I'm going to make a video in the future about the story overall, but I need to go into spoilers, and I want to give some people some more time to become acquainted with the game. So, the gameplay. Why is the game so much fun? I talked about this a few days ago, but the dichotomy between the social simulation aspects of the game and the dungeon crawling JRPG combat, it varies the style of the game up to keep interest. I'm the type of person that likes variety. I like being able to do multiple different things because it keeps my attention. And each individual element of the game is overall simple, but because there are so many different elements, it feels mentally stimulating enough to make the overall loop enjoyable. Because a lot of the time with Persona 5, it's not so much about the mechanical complexity of the game, like how many buttons you're inputting or the order of the buttons you're inputting. It's not really about that. It's more so about the choice behind the buttons that you do press. And a lot of the game's enjoyment and engagement, to me, comes through decision making. Planning out what to prioritize and target while being rewarded in the dungeons for what you do in the overworld. It creates an engaging gameplay loop where each aspect feeds into another. There's a constant check of gains and losses, and your playthrough feels very unique compared to what you may watch others do. For instance, say, hey, you know what I really want to prioritize for the dungeons? I want to prioritize the items that I can use to heal or sustain my party. I want to prioritize that specifically. So what I'm going to do is the character I'm going to prioritize in the overall world, in those social simulator aspects of the game, I'm going to prioritize the doctor, because with higher ranks of the doctor, I'll get access to better and better medicines and items that I can use to heal my party in those dungeons. That's a choice you can make as the player, or you can say, screw it, you know who I want to level up first? I want to level up Ryuji, who is one of the party members of the game. So by leveling him up in the overworld, I can gain new abilities that he can use or have access to in the dungeons to make it an overall smoother experience. There's these choices, these gains and losses that you're constantly checking, you're constantly thinking about. And for me at least, even when I'm not playing the game, I'm always thinking about what I want to do the next time I'm playing. And when a game is able to manage to make me think about it even when I'm not playing, I consider that to be a good thing. Most of the time. That dichotomy, it's so pivotal to the overall Persona experience because they're able to merge two varyingly different genres, like two extremes. One very combat JRPG oriented, grinding, doing like side objectives and all that, collectibles, all that, leveling up party members and all that. And then you juxtapose that with social simulator visual novel type elements, and you don't think on the surface, how can they really mesh these two without making them feel so different and almost jarringly so to one another, but they somehow managed to weave them together due to a great incentivization structure around the entire game, where one flows into the other. Those social simulator aspects feed into the gameplay, feed into powering you up. You always feel like you're progressing your character with each day. Even if it's something small, it's a bunch of little steps that push you towards your goal. But now, let's talk about the combat specifically, because I absolutely adore Persona 5 Royal's combat. They made a number of changes compared to the base game with Royal that I feel have just overall added to the formula and added to the engagement of the game and made it overall more enjoyable and engaging experience. But let's take a brief tangent and talk about why Pokemon is so well beloved. Stay with me, this will go somewhere. Pokemon is a game about rock, paper, scissors with the elements. There are various things that you're super effective against, and things you're super effective that are super effective against you. Persona takes that rock, paper, scissors element that overall matchup formula and expands on it and adds more depth to it to round out its near 100 plus hour playtime. Personas are visually diverse and appealing, making you want to collect them all. They can have various buffs and debuffs that you can manage on top of constantly managing your SP that you use to cast spells. All of that adds risk-reward to each encounter as you play, because you're planning out how much you can expend, how much you can really use in each encounter, because it's going to affect your decision-making in the next. So each dungeon becomes a war of attrition, so the previous battle affects the next one, due to your SP. Just so long as you're not like overly and grossly over-leveled, but if you're in that right level bracket, it makes for a very engaging overall gameplay loop because nothing feels separate to one another. They all feel interconnected. And another problem that I have with a lot of JRPGs overall is the use of the party due to a lack of XP share. I tend to leave certain party members just lost and forgotten if I don't spend some insignificant time. Well, I have to spend some not insignificant time just grinding basic mobs to keep them leveled up, which I don't find overall that much fun. I'd prefer to stick to side content or the main objective. But with Persona 5 Royal, what they do is very subtle in a lot of ways, but also quite ingenious. It allows you to swap party members out mid-combat on top of the Moon Arcana that you can level up, which grants you an XP share and powers up that XP share until, at max level, all of your non-active party members gain just as much XP as your active party members. What this does is it produces a very intuitive synergy that makes the overall party composition in any given encounter fluid and variant. It allows you to make these choices about how you want to tackle each situation in the game, in the combat, in the fight. You don't have to go into a fight, learn what the type matchups are, and be like, oh wait, I have to swap party members in order to actually do this fight. Let me just back out and do this again. You don't have to do that. Like, oh, hey, maybe Morgana is not the character I want here. Maybe I want character Y. So I can just swap them out in combat. That's genius. Because it's very intuitive. And it rewards me for thinking outside the box. Saying, hey, what I have in my hand is not the hand I want to be dealt with. I want a different hand. I can swap out. I can make that choice as the player. And I can also make the choice of, hey, the character that might be more effective doesn't have as much SP as the characters in my party. So I might want to use the ones in my party as much as I can, and then bring in the heavy hitter for when I need them. That's another choice that you can make as the player. That is player agency. I like that. You are rewarded for using all of your party members as they have different buffs, debuffs, and elemental type matchups. So you can swap them in each battle when you need, just like when you need them. That ups player agency, that ups the level of strategy you can enact in combat, and constantly makes you think instead of getting into a rut of just pressing attack over and over again. You swap out and can create a more dynamic and engaging gameplay experience. And because you don't have to worry about them being underleveled because of the XP share with the Moon Arcana, you don't have to worry about grinding them up. They're just ready to go. It's so liberating. It's so much fun. And honestly, there's another aspect of this that I don't think is talked about quite enough. The immersion. You just feel more connected to all of your party members because you are using them, and you don't feel like you need to play in a way that you don't find fun just to get them XP. You use them when you want, which is infinitely better in my opinion. In the base game, the last party member that you got, I never used them because they would almost be perpetually behind the rest of my party. I stuck to what I had, and I just stuck with that. I just leveled them up, and I didn't have to worry about my other party members. But in Royal, I don't have to think like that. I can use everybody. And when you're using everybody, I just find that more fun. But now take all of that gameplay loop I just talked about, all those different mechanics that play into one another and interlink to create a tapestry of fun gameplay. Now take all of that and add on top of it the dungeon design, because I also find that to be really fun with Persona 5 Royal. It's nothing too complicated. Nothing in Persona 5 is. But having these large palaces that you can fully explore and find cool stuff in, as well as collectibles and various personas, that is fun and rewarding. It rewards exploration. You don't have to do it, but if you do, you are rewarded for the time you spent putting in. And honestly, going back to games like Persona 3 and Persona 4, it can be a little bit rough because, in my opinion, Persona 5's dungeons are just a step in the right direction. It's hard to go back to something like Tartarus, or the Persona 4 dungeons, which can feel too samey after a while. And Persona 4 is largely a bunch of just different colored hallways. Sure, it has some interesting mechanics, but the visual and aesthetic variety offered in P5 is just a step up, in my opinion. Exploring those dungeons, using the grappling hook, that's cool. The feeling, the immersion of Persona 5's dungeons is far greater than the other dungeons in the series, in my opinion. And also just in a lot of other JRPGs in general. I think of Persona 5 Royal very highly. And you will find out how highly when I do my top 10 list for my favorite games of all time. Stay tuned for that. That's that 500 sub goal coming in clutch. But honestly, I know what I just said kind of sounds like a critique of Persona 3 and Persona 4, and it kind of is. But honestly, I think it's a good thing. You want a series to get progressively better with each iteration. You want them to take the lessons from the past, take the good stuff, and either change the bad or leave it behind. And in a lot of ways, that's what they did with P5. When they went from P5 to P5 Royal, they did it again. That's progress. I like to see that out of the series. So not only is the combat fun and rewarding, that all ties into one another with benefits that you get in the overworld and social simulation aspects, but also the dungeon itself is fun to explore and honestly just look at. Occasionally, I just like to walk around the dungeon. Persona 5 is very stylized, and I like drinking in that atmosphere, that level of immersion, and even doing basic movements or puzzle solving can feel rewarding due to how well animated and choreographed the whole game is. Going from spotlight to spotlight, watching Joker hide along walls, ambush enemies. It's very fun and mechanically rewarding because Atlus realized you don't need to have a bunch of complicated button inputs to make an experience overall immersive and fun and enjoyable. You don't need to do that. But what you need to do is make each of those inputs that you do rewarding in of themselves. You have to make them feel like each button that you press matters. And in Persona 5, it does. Persona 5 is the epitome of keep it simple. But it has a bunch of very simple mechanics intertwined with each other to produce a game that can be quite complex when you take all of those simple mechanics together. Or the game can be simple enough for someone who only wants to enjoy the story to do so. They can have fun with it, because those buttons are simple, but they're effective, and they're enjoyable to press. But if you really want to get into the weeds of things, and you want to min-max your personas and all that, and you want to min-max the amount of SP you gain or lose in each encounter, you can do that. That's one of the great things about Persona, in my opinion. It knows beauty and simplicity, and it enacts upon that very well. Even in the overworld, right? Just on like the one main street in Shibuya, you have many different tasks that you can do. You can go eat at Big Bang Burger, which might give you various stat increases. Oh, it's raining, I might want to go to the library or the cafe and order a certain meal that might give me additional bonus benefits to my social stat. I might want to take a part-time job there, which can give me more money that I can use at the doctor to buy more resources, or in the Velvet Room to upgrade my personas or fuse them. There's a bunch of very simple tasks that you can do, but what you get out of them is really up to you. And that's just one area of Persona 5. There's multiple others. And yeah, it can feel overwhelming at times if you're new, and you're not really well acquainted with the world and what the overall gameplay loop is, but just take it slow, and I promise you that if this game does click for you, it's going to click significantly for you. This is a ride or die type of game. You're either going to absolutely adore it, which is fine, or the game's just not going to be for you, which is also fine. People have different preferences. That's up to you as the player to make your own choices. But in my opinion, this is one of the best games ever made. And trust me when I say this, more videos will be coming in the future as to why it's so well designed, well made, and one of my favorite games of all time. I haven't even talked about the story yet. I talked about it a long time ago, but I have some updated thoughts. Because honestly, the story is what elevates this game to be one of the greatest games of all time, in my opinion. It is that good. So, I'm going to leave it there for the day. Go out and enjoy Persona 5 Royal. Go out and experience this epic for yourself. You deserve to enjoy a good freaking game. And Persona 5 Royal is an excellent freaking game. Thank you all for tuning in. While you're down there in the comments, leaving your thoughts, your initial impressions, or your overall thoughts on Persona 5 Royal, leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content and helps you know when I post more videos on Persona 5, because trust me, they are coming. Stay safe with everybody. Go play some Persona. Stay safe with everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.